What's up, guys? Welcome to Mike It Yourself, and today is Review Wednesday. Today's video, we're going to cover Ape Hangers. Now, when I bought my two bikes, they actually came with the Ape Hangers already installed, and so unfortunately I don't have an installation or video on doing that, but I do hope to have one in the near future here. So let's talk a little bit about the Ape Hangers on the Fatboy, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Ape Hangers that are on the Road Glide. So with the Fatboy, these are 16-inch Ape Hangers, and you know there's a way to measure that, and we'll show you what that looks like really quick, just so you know for your knowledge how you do that. But these are 16-inch Ape Hangers, and the look of these handlebars on this bike is phenomenal. Like that's why they're super common on this style of bike. It just looks really, really good. The downside is, you know, as you ride around, they're not, for me at least, not ideal. They're not comfortable, and part of that is just kind of position, and then of the bars, whether they're forward, that kind of stuff. And then there's also, you know, the height difference. So I'm 5'8", so I'm not a very tall person, and when I'm on this and riding, my fists are a little bit above my shoulder height, right? And honestly, you know, riding it for a long period of time, you just get uncomfortable. And so I've tried two different things to see what I can do to make the ride a little bit more enjoyable, because I love riding this bike. This bike is such a blast to ride around. I've tried leaning them forward a little bit more, and what that does is it kind of gets you forward, and you feel a little bit better in that angle. And then I've also tried them back a little bit. So for me, I can't actually get comfortable with them too far back. So I just can't find that happy place, right? So I think what we're going to do is these ones will probably get swapped out in the future. But overall, I mean, just something to consider as you look at Ape Hangers is it the right height for you? And I absolutely 100% recommend you go out to a dealership, and you know, look at a couple of their used bikes and find ones with the Ape Hangers on them. See what their measurements are, and that way you can get a good feel for what you think might be the right height for you. So, you know, the other important thing is when you do kind of mock it up or sit on the bike with the Ape Hangers, don't do it just with your feet on the ground, because one thing that I found was, you know, you sit differently. Your positioning is different with your feet on the ground versus once you put your feet up on your pegs or your floorboards, you kind of kick yourself back just a little bit. And that kind of offsets where you've adjusted your bars. And you find out later on, you're like, nope, this ain't for me. Like this, I've got to adjust it again. While you're doing the adjustments on your bars, the other thing I recommend is carrying with you, you know, if you can, you know, throw it in a backpack if you know, if you don't have a bagger, is bring the tools to adjust, to loosen up the clamp bolts, and that way you can ride it. You're like, you know what, I need to move them a little forward. You can loosen them up, move your bars forward, clamp them back down, and then hit the road again. You can get a good feel for exactly the right spot for your bars. So again, love the look. Unfortunately, just doesn't fit my functionality, and I've got to figure out for myself what's the right height of Ape Hanger bars for my bike. So let's talk a little bit about the Road Glide. All right, so now let's look at the Road Glide. And the reason I'm bringing these two bikes and comparing them is because there is a subtle difference that can change kind of the level needed related to your Ape Hanger, and that is the seat. So on a Softail, the seat height is lower than on a touring bike. And because of that, now I've got my bars pulled back, and if you don't know, in the clamp area on the bottom side, there's a pin that pops out, and it'll only allow you to adjust your bars forward and backward minimally. Okay, so you can't do it. Now you can knock that pin out if you want, and you can bring these things all the way back however you want. But just know that if you've got a stock bike and you've not done any modifications to that, or nobody else has, then you're going to be limited unless you make that change. So I've got these pulled back as far as I could with that pin in place. And if you notice, these are also 16-inch ape hangers, yet my hand position is lower than my shoulder. This bike I could ride all day, like miles after mile, no problem. I feel comfortable. I don't feel like I struggle with the steering at all, whether it be at high speed or slow speed. Now, I will tell you one of the big differences that I had to get used to with Ape Hangers was on a sport bike and some of my other bikes that I had, cruisers that I had before, the bars were always stock and they set very low. And when you ride, if you go through like the Motorcycle Safety Foundation courses or whoever, you know, teaches motorcycle safety in your area, they kind of go over the push-push method, right? So as you're steering, you kind of push, right? And you push and you push, and that's what helps you lean turn your bike. Now, when you're dealing with the Ape Hangers, depending on what position your arms are in, if they're up high, the push-push thing ain't gonna work, right? Like that's gonna be a problem. So when they get lower, it feels a little bit better like that. So you just got to get used to the difference in steering with the Ape Hangers. So like I said, these are 16-inch. They're perfect for this bike, right? I've got no problems as far as comfort and functionality. So these are a keeper. I'm gonna, you know, enjoy these bars on this bike for a long time to come. So I just wanted to point out that difference because I think it's important to make sure you take all of those factors into play when you're making your decision as to which bars are right for you. All right, so I wanted to show you really quick just kind of how to measure your bars, right? Because if you don't know, then you may get, you know, erroneous measurements, and either it'll confuse you or you're going to end up thinking you have one size and not the other, and then, you know, you're not going to buy or not going to be able to make the appropriate decision for you, right? So the way it's supposed to be done is center line of the lower part of the bar to the center line of the upper part of the bar. Now that's a tough thing to accomplish, especially if the bars are on the bike. So what you can do is get it up there and kind of just eyeball it a bit. And if you see, that black box right there is 16 inches. So I'm, you know, kind of estimating it a little bit here, but I can say with a good amount of confidence that that's 16 inches. So that's kind of how you want to measure your bars. Now, one of the things you can do if you feel like your bars are either, you know, or at least if they're too high. Of course, if they're too low, then you're not going to be able to use the same methodology, but you could measure your bar. So like for these ones, if I wanted to see what it would be like to be at 9 inches, at 12 inches, at 14, and then just tag it off with some tape. And then you just kind of sit on your bike and get that feel for where your arms are going to be based on that tape level. And that'll also give you a good opportunity to figure out what's the right size handlebars for you. All right, guys, that's going to be a wrap for today's Review Wednesday. I hope I was able to bring you a little bit of information that would make it easier for you to choose which height of handlebar will be right for you. Again, comfort, functionality, looks, or, you know, when you're dressing up your bike, you want it to look great, but at the same time, you don't want it to be something that you despise riding because it's just uncomfortable, right? You want to be able to put miles on the bike, be in the wind, and enjoy the ride every single time you saddle up. So if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you enjoy my content, subscribe. And if you don't want to miss out on that next video, hit the notification bell. It's going to give you a ding ding when that next video posts. And until then, I hope to see you in the wind.